Welcome back. The valley is quiet again tonight. If you listened to part 1, you already know the stillness of this place. You felt the wilderness breathe. You walked beneath the tall northern pines, where silence is not empty, but full of meaning. And now we continue. If this is your first time here, do not worry. You do not need to remember every detail. You do not need to think hard. You do not need to catch every word. Just let the story carry you. Part 1 gently opened the door to the Three Rivers country, a land of distance, loyalty, danger, and men who speak very little but feel very deeply. Tonight, that quiet tension grows. Questions left in the shadows begin to take shape. The valley does not reveal itself quickly. It moves slowly, like a river in the dark. So before we begin, take one slow breath in and gently let it go. Let your shoulders soften. Let your jaw relax. Let your thoughts slow down. There is nothing you need to solve. Nothing you need to prepare for tomorrow. Nothing you need to control. Just listen. Allow the rhythm of the words to guide your breathing. Allow the stillness of this wilderness to quiet your mind. If your thoughts drift, that is perfectly fine. If sleep comes before the chapter ends, that is even better. Because here at Elevate Slumber, the goal is simple. Relax the mind, empty the noise, and let sleep come naturally. And now we return to the valley of our silent men. Because she came from the south and not the north, suggested Kent. Probably up from Edmonton. Exactly. And Kedsty was not expecting her, was he? If he had been, that first sight of her would not have shattered every nerve in his body. That is why the big hunch will not let loose of me, Kent. From the moment he saw her, he was a different man. His attitude toward you changed instantly. If he could save you now by raising his little finger, he would not do it, simply because it is absolutely necessary for him to have an excuse for freeing McTrigger. Your confession came at just a psychological moment. The girl's unspoken demand there in the poplars was that he free McTrigger, and it was backed up by a threat which Kedsty understood and which terrified him to his marrow. McTrigger must have seen him afterward, for he waited at the office until Kedsty came. I do not know what passed between them. Constable Doyle says they were together for half an hour. Then McTrigger walked out of barracks, and no one has seen him since. It is mighty queer. The whole thing is queer. And the queerest part of the whole business is this sudden commission of mine at Fort Simpson. Kent leaned back against his pillows. His breath came in a series of short, hacking coughs. In the star glow, O'Connor saw his face grow suddenly haggard and tired-looking, and he leaned far in, so that in both his own hands he held one of Kent's. "I am tiring you, Jimmy," he said huskily. "Goodbye, old pal. He hesitated and then lied steadily. "I am going up to take a look around Kedsty's place. I will not be gone more than half an hour, and you'll stop on my way back. If you are asleep, I will not be asleep," said Kent. O'Connor's hands groped closer. "Goodbye, Jimmy," said their last farewell. Chapter 4. It was a long time after O'Connor had gone before Kent at last fell asleep. It was a slumber weighted with the restlessness of a brain fighting to the last against exhaustion and the inevitable end. A strange spirit seemed whirling Kent back through the years he had lived, even to the days of his boyhood, leaping from crest to crest, giving to him swift and passing visions of valleys almost forgotten, of happenings and things long ago faded and indistinct in his memory. Vividly his dreams were filled with ghosts that were transformed as his spirit went back to them, until they were riotous with life and pulsating with the red blood of reality. He was a boy again, playing three-old cat in front of the little old red brick schoolhouse, half a mile from the farm where he was born and where his mother had died. And Skinny Hill, dead many years ago, was his partner at the bat, lovable Skinny, with his smirking grin and his breath that always smelled of the most delicious onions ever raised in Ohio. And then, at dinner hour, he was trading some of his mother's cucumber pickles for some of Skinny's onions, 2 onions for a pickle, and never a change in the price. And he played old-fashioned casino with his mother, and they were picking blackberries together in the woods, and he killed Overthinking snake that he had clubbed to death more than 20 years ago, while his mother ran away and screamed, and then sat down and cried. He had worshipped that mother, and the spirit of his dreams did not let him look down into the valley where she lay dead under a little white stone in the country cemetery 1,000 miles away, with his father close beside her. But it gave him a passing thrill of the days in which he had fought his way through college, and then it brought him into the north, his beloved north. For hours, the wilderness was heavy about Kent. He moved restlessly. At times, he seemed about to awaken, but always he slipped back into the slumberous arms of his forests. He was on the trail in the cold grey beginning of winter, and the glow of his campfire made a radiant patch of red glory in the heart of the night. And close to him in that glow sat O'Connor. He was behind the dogs and sledge, fighting storm. Dark and mysterious streams rippled under his canoe. He was on the big river, O'Connor with him again. And then, suddenly, he was holding a blazing gun in his hand, and he and O'Connor stood with their backs to a rack, facing the bloodthirsty rage. Macaw and his free traders. The roar of the guns half roused him, and after that came pleasanter things. The droning of wind in the spruce tops, the singing of swollen streams in springtime, the songs of birds, the sweet smells of life, the glory of life as he had lived it, he and O'Connor. In the end, half between sleep and wakefulness, he was fighting a smothering pressure on his chest. It was an oppressive and torturing thing, like the tree that had fallen on him over in the jackfish country, and he felt himself slipping off into darkness. Suddenly, there was a gleam of light. He opened his eyes. The sun was flooding in at his window, and the weight on his chest was the gentle pressure of Cardigan's stethoscope. In spite of the physical stress of the phantoms which his mind has conceived, Kent awakened so quietly that Cardigan was not conscious of the fact until he raised his head. There was something in his face which he tried to conceal, but Kent caught it before it was gone. There were dark hollows under his eyes. He was a bit haggard, as though he had spent a sleepless night. Kent pulled himself up, squinting at the sun, and grinning apologetically. He had slept well, long into the day, and he caught himself with a sudden grimace of pain. A flash of something hot and burning swept through his chest. It was like a knife. He opened his mouth to breathe in the air. The pressure inside him was no longer the pressure of a stethoscope. It was real. Cardigan, standing over him, was trying to look cheerful. "Too much of the night air, Kent," he explained. "That will pass away soon." It seemed to Kent that Cardigan gave an almost imperceptible emphasis to the word soon, but he asked no question. He was quite sure that he understood, and he knew how unpleasant for Cardigan the answer to it would be. He fumbled under his pillow for his watch. It was 9 o'clock. Cardigan was moving about uneasily, arranging the things on the table and adjusting the shade at the window. For a few moments, with his back to Kent, he stood without moving. Then he turned and said, "Which will you have, Kent? A wash-up and breakfast, or a visitor? I'm not hungry, and I do not feel like soap and water just now." "Who is the visitor?" "Father Leon, or Ketzty?" "Neither. It is a lady." "Then I would better have the soap and water." "Do you mind telling me who it is?" Cardigan shook his head. "I do not know. I have never seen her before. She came this morning while I was still in pajamas, and has been waiting ever since. I told her to come back again, but she insisted that she would remain until you were awake. She has been very patient for 2 hours." A thrill which she made no effort to conceal leaped through Kent. "Is she a young woman?" he demanded eagerly. "Wonderful black hair, blue eyes, wears high-heeled shoes, just about half as big as your hand, and very beautiful." "Oliver," nodded Cardigan. "I even noticed the shoes, Jimmy. A very beautiful young woman." "Please let her come in," said Kent. "Mercer scrubbed me last night, and I feel fairly fit. She will forgive this beard, and I will apologize for your sake." "What is her name?" I asked her, and she did not seem to hear. A little later, Mercer asked her, and he said. She just looked at him for a moment, and he froze. "She is reading a volume of Plutarch's Lives, actually reading it. I know it by the way she turns the pages," and drew himself RBR against his pillows and faced the door when Cardigan went out. In a flash, all that O'Connor had said swept back upon him. This girl, Ketzty, the mystery of it all. Why had she come to see him? What could be the motive of her visit, unless it was to thank him for the confession that had given Sandy McTricker his freedom? O'Connor was right. She was deeply concerned in McTricker and had come to express her gratitude. He listened. Distant footsteps sounded in the hall. They approached quickly and paused outside his door. A hand moved a latch, but for a moment the door did not open. He heard Cardigan's voice, then Cardigan's footsteps retreating down the hall. His heart thumped. He could not remember when he had been so upset over an unimportant thing. Chapter 5. The next instant he was staring. The girl had entered and closed the door behind her. O'Connor's picture stood in flesh and blood before him. The girl's eyes met his own. They were like glorious violets, as O'Connor had said, but they were not the eyes he had expected to see. They were the wide-open, curious eyes of a child. He had visualized them as pools of slumbering flame, the idea O'Connor had given him, and they were the opposite of that. Their one emotion seemed to be the emotion roused by an overwhelming, questioning curiosity. They were apparently not regarding him as a dying human being, but as a creature immensely interesting to look upon. In place of the gratitude he had anticipated, they were filled with a great, wondering adoration, and there was not the slightest hint of embarrassment in their gaze. For a space, it seemed to Kent that he saw nothing but those wonderful, dispassionate eyes looking at him. Then he saw the rest of her amazing hair, her pale, exquisite face, the slimness and beauty of her, as she stood with her back to the door, one hand still resting on the latch. He had never seen anything quite like her. He might have guessed that she was 18 or 20 or 22. Her hair, wreathed in shimmering velvety coils from the back to the crown of her head, struck him as it had struck O'Connor, as unbelievable. The glory of it gave to her an appearance of height which she did not possess, for she was not tall, and her slimness added to the illusion. And then, greatly to his embarrassment, in the next instant, his eyes went to her feet. Again, O'Connor was right. Tiny feet, high-heeled pumps, ravishingly turned ankles, showing under a skirt of some fluffy brown stuff or other. Correcting himself, his face flushed red. The faintest tremble of a smile was on the girl's lips. She looked down, and for the first time he saw what O'Connor had seen, the sunlight kindling slumberous fires in her hair. Kent tried to say something, but before he succeeded, she had taken possession of the chair near his bedside. "I've been waiting a long time to see you," she said. "You're James Kent, are not you?" "Yes, I'm Jim Kent. I'm sorry Dr. Cardigan kept you waiting. If I had known..." Hussein took upon himself again and smiled at her. He noticed the merry father dark lashes, but the violet eyes behind them did not smile back at him. The tranquility of their gaze was disconcerting. It was as if she had not quite made up her mind about him yet, and was still trying to classify him in the museum of things she had known. "He should have awakened me," Kent went on, trying to keep himself from slipping once more. "It is not polite to keep a young lady waiting 2 hours. This time, the blue eyes made him feel that his smile was a maudlin grin. "Yes, you are different," she spoke softly, as if expressing the thought to herself. "That took him to find out if you were different. You are dying? My God." "Yes, I am dying," gasped Kent. "According to Dr. Cardigan, I am due to pop off this minute. Are not you a little nervous, sitting so near to a man who is ready to explode while you are looking at him?" For the first time the eyes changed. She was not facing the window, yet a glow, like the glow of sunlight, flashed into them, soft, luminous, almost laughing. "No, it does not frighten me," she assured him. "I have always thought I should like to see a man die, not quickly like drowning or being shot, but slowly, an inch at a time. But I should not like to see you die." "I am glad," breathed Kent. "It is a great satisfaction to me, yet I should not be frightened if you did." "Oh," Kent drew himself up straighter against his pillows. He had been a man of many adventures. He had faced almost every conceivable kind of shock, but this was a new one. He stared into the blue eyes, tongueless and mentally dazed. They were cool and sweet, and not at all excited, and he knew that she spoke the truth, not by a quiver of those lovely lashes. Would she betray either fear or horror if he popped off right there? It was astonishing. Something like resentment shot for an instant into his bewildered brain. Then it was gone, and in a flash it came upon him that she was but uttering his own philosophy of life, showing him life's cheapness, life's littleness, the absurdity of being distressed by looking upon the light as it flickered out. And she was doing it, not as a philosopher, but with the beautiful unconcern of a child. Suddenly, as if impelled by an emotion in direct contradiction to her apparent lack of sympathy, she reached out a hand and placed it on Kent's forehead. It was another shock. It was not a professional touch, but a soft, cool little pressure that sent a comforting thrill through him. The hand was there for only a moment, and she withdrew it to entwine the slim fingers with those of the others in her lap. "You have no fever," she said. "What makes you think you are dying?" Kent explained what was happening inside him. He was completely shunted off his original track of thought and anticipation. He had expected to ask for at least a mutual introduction when his visitor came into his room, and had anticipated taking upon himself the position of a polite inquisitor. In spite of O'Connor, he had not thought she would be quite so pretty. He had not believed her eyes would be so beautiful, or their lashes so long, or the touch of her hand so pleasantly unnerving. And now, in place of asking for her name and the reason for her visit, he became an irrational idiot, explaining to her certain matters of physiology that had to do with aortas and aneurysmal sacs. He had finished before the absurdity of the situation dawned upon him, and with absurdity came the humor of it. Even dying Keck could not fail to see the funny side of the thing. It struck him as suddenly as had the girl's beauty and her bewildering and unaffected ingenuousness. Looking at him, that same glow of mysterious questioning in her eyes, the girl found him suddenly laughing straight into her face. "This is funny." "It is very funny, Miss Marette," she supplied, answering his hesitation. "It is funny, Miss Marette, not Miss Marette, just Marette," she corrected. "I say, it is funny." He tried again. "You see, it is not so terribly pleasant as you might think to, be here, where I am, dying. And last night, I thought about the finest thing in the world would be to have a woman beside me, a woman who would be sort of sympathetic, ease the thing off a little, maybe say she was sorry. And then the Lord answers my prayer, and you come, and you sort of give me the impression that you made the appointment with yourself to see how a fellow looks when he pops off." The shimmer of light came into the blue eyes again. She seemed to have done with her mental analysis of him, and he saw that a bit of color was creeping into her cheeks, pale, when she had entered the room. "You would not be the first I have seen pop off," she assured him. "There have been a number, and I have never cried very much. I would rather see a man die than some animals. But I should not like to see you do it. Does that comfort you, like the woman you prayed the Lord for?" "It does," gasped Kent. "But why the devil, Miss Marette?" "Marette," she corrected again. "Yes, Marette. Why the devil have you come to see me at just the moment I am due to explode? And what is your other name? And how old are you? And what do you want of me?" "I have not any other name. I am 20, and I came to get acquainted with you and see what you are like." "Bully," exclaimed Kent. "We are getting there fast. And now, what?" The girl drew her chair a few inches nearer, and for a moment Kent thought that her lovely mouth was trembling on the edge for smile, because you have lied so splendidly to save another man who was about to die. Et tu brute, sighed Kent, leaning back against his pillows. Is not it possible for a decent man to kill another man and not be called a liar when he tells about it? Why do so many believe that I lie? They do not, said the girl. They believe you. Now, you have gone so completely into the details of the murder in your confession that they are quite convinced. It would be too bad if you lived, for you surely would be hanged. Your lie sounds and reads like the truth, but I know it is a lie. You did not kill John Barclay, and the reason for your suspicion. For fully half a minute, the girl's eyes rested on his own. Again they seemed to be looking through him and into him. Because I know the man who 999 kill him, she said quietly, and it was not you. Kent made a mighty effort to appear calm. He reached for a cigar from the box that Cardigan had placed on his bed and nibbled at the end of it. Has someone else been confessing? He asked. She shook her head the slightest bit. Did you see this other gentleman kill John Barclay? He insisted. No. Then I must answer you as I have answered at least one other. I killed John Barclay. If you suspect some other person, your suspicion is wrong. What splendid liar, she breathed softly. Do not you believe in God? Kent winced in a large embracing sense. Yes, he said. I believe in him, for instance, as revealed to our senses in all that living, growing glory you see out there through the window. Nature and I have become pretty good pals, and you see I have sort of built up a mother goddess to worship instead of a he god. Sacrilege, maybe, but it is a great comfort at times. But you did not come to talk religion? The lovely head bent still nearer him. He felt an impelling desire to put up his hand and touch her shining hair as she laid her hand on his forehead. I know who killed John Barclay, she insisted. I know how and when and why he was killed. Please tell me the truth. I want to know. Why did you confess to a crime which you did not commit? Kent took time to light his cigar. The girl watched him closely, almost eagerly. I may be mad, he said. It's possible for any human being to be mad and not know it. That is the funny part about insanity. But if I am not insane, I killed Barclay. If I did not kill him, I must be insane, for I am very well convinced that I did. Either that, or you are insane. I have my suspicions that you are. Would a sane person wear pumps with heels? Look here, he pointed accusingly to the floor. For the first time, the girl smiled, openly, frankly, gloriously. It was as if her heart had leaped forth for an instant and had greeted him. And then, like sunlight shadowed by cloud, the smile was gone. You are a brave man, she said. You are splendid. I hate men, but I think if you lived very long, I should love you. I will believe that you killed Barclay. You compel me to believe it. You confessed, when you found you were going to die, that an innocent man might be saved. Was not that it? Kent nodded weakly. That is it. I hate to think of it that way, but I guess it is true. I confessed because I knew I was going to die. Otherwise, I'm quite sure that I should have let the other fellow take my medicine for me. He must think I'm a beast. All men are beasts, she agreed quickly. But you are a different kind of beast. I like you. She held up her 2 small hands, half smiling at him again. But not with those, he exclaimed. I think you would fight with your eyes. O'Connor told me they half killed Kedsty when you met them in the poplar grove yesterday. He'd expected that the mention of Inspector Kedsty's name would disturb her. It had no effect that he could perceive. O'Connor was the big, red-faced man with Mr. Kedsty. Yes, my trail partner. He came to me yesterday and raved about your eyes. They are beautiful. I have never seen eyes soft so lovely. But that was not what struck Bucky so hard. It was the effect they had on Kedsty. He said they shattered every nerve in Kedsty's body. Kedsty is not the sort to get easily frightened. And the queer part of it was that the instant you had gone, he gave O'Connor an order to free McTrigger, and then turned and followed you. All the rest of that day, O'Connor tried to discover something about you at the landing. He could not find hide nor hair. I beg pardon. I mean he could not find out anything about you at all. We made up our minds that for some reason or other, you were hiding up at Kedsty Bungalow. You do not mind a fellow saying all this when he is going to pop off soon, do you? He was half frightened at the directness with which he had expressed the thing. He would gladly have buried his own curiosity and all of O'Connor's suspicions for another moment of her hand on his forehead, but it was out, and he waited. She was looking down, her fingers twisting some sort of tasseled dress ornament in her lap, and Kent mentally measured the length of her lashes with a foot rule in mind. They were superb, and in the thrill of his admiration, he would have sworn they were an inch long. She looked up suddenly and caught the glow in his eyes and the flush that lay under the tan of his cheeks. Her own color had deepened a little. What if you should not die? She asked him bluntly, as if she had not heard a word of all he had said about Kedsty. What would you do? I am going to, but if you should not. Kent shrugged his shoulders. I suppose I would have to take my medicine. You are not going? She had straightened up and was sitting on the edge of her chair. Yes, I am going. I am afraid of my eyes. I may look at you as I looked at Mr. Kedsty, and then Pop, you will go quick, and I do not want to be here when you die. He heard a soft little note of laughter in her throat. It sent a chill through him. What an adorable, bloodthirsty little wretch she was. He stared at her bent head, at the shining coils of her wonderful hair. Undone, he could see it completely, hiding her, and it was so soft and warm that again he was tempted to reach out and touch it. She was wonderful, and yet it was not possible that she had a heart. Her apparent disregard of the fact that he was a dying man was almost diabolic. There was no sympathy in the expression of her violet eyes as she looked at him. She was even making fun of the fact that he was about to die. She stood up, surveying for the first time the room in which she had been sitting. Then she turned to the window and looked out. She reminded Kent of a beautiful young willow that had grown at the edge of a stream, exquisite, slender, strong. He could have picked her up in his arms as easily as a child, yet he sensed in the lithe beauty of her body forces that could endure magnificently. The careless poise of her head fascinated him, for that head and the hair that crowned it, he knew that half the women of the earth would have traded precious years of their lives. And then, without turning toward him, she said, "Someday, when I die, I wish I might have as pleasant a room as this." "I hope you never die," he replied devoutly. She came back and stood for a moment beside him. "I have had a very pleasant time," she said, as though he had given her a special sort of entertainment. "It is too bad you are going to die. I am sure we should have been good friends, are not you?" "Yes, very sure, if you had only arrived sooner. And I shall always think of you as a different kind of man, a beast," she interrupted him. "It is really true that I should not like to see you die. I want to get away before it happens. Would you care to have me kiss you?" For an instant Kent felt that his aorta was about to give away. I would," he gasped huskily. "Then close your eyes, please." He obeyed. She bent over him. He felt the soft touch of her hands and caught for an instant the perfume of her face and hair, and then the thrill of her lips pressed warm and soft upon his. She was not flushed or embarrassed when he looked at her again. It was as if she had kissed a baby and was wondering at its red face. "I have only kissed 3 men before you," she avowed. "It is strange. I never thought I should do it again. And now, goodbye." She moved quickly to the door. "Wait," he cried plaintively. "Please wait. I want to know your name." "It is Mahet Redison," she finished for him. "Mahet Redison. And I come from away off there, from a place we call the Valley of Silent Men." She was pointing into the north. "The north," he exclaimed. "Yes, it is far north, very far." Her hand was on the latch. The door opened slowly. "Wait," he pleaded again. "You must not go." "Yes, I must go. I have remained too long." "I am sorry I kissed you. I should not have done that. But I had to, because you are such a splendid liar." The door opened quickly and closed behind her. He heard her steps, almost running down the hall, where, not long ago, he had listened to the last of O'Connor's. And then there was silence, and in that silence he heard her words again, drumming like little hammers in his head. "Because you are such a splendid liar." Chapter 6. James Kent, among his other qualities, good and bad, possessed a merciless opinion of his own shortcomings, but never, in that opinion, had he fallen so low as in the interval which immediately followed the closing of his door behind the mysterious girl who had told him that her name was Mahet Radisson. No sooner was she gone than the overwhelming superiority of her childlike cleverness smote him until, ashamed of himself, he burned red in his aloneness. He, Sergeant Kent, the coolest man on the force next to Inspector Kedsty, the most dreaded of catechists when questioning criminals, the man who had won the reputation facing quietly and with deadly sureness the most menacing of dangers, had been beaten, horribly beaten, by a girl, and yet, in defeat, an irrepressible and at times distorted sense of humor made him give credit to the victor. The shame of the thing was his acknowledgement that the bit of feminine beauty had done the trick. He had made fun of O'Connor when the big staff sergeant described the effect of the girl's eyes on Inspector Kedsty. And now, if O'Connor could know of what And then, like a rubber ball, that saving sense of humor bounced up, out. His visitor had come, and she had gone, and he knew no more about her than when she had entered his room, except that her very pretty name was Marette Radisson. He was just beginning to think of the questions he had wanted to ask, a dozen, half a hundred of them, more definitely, who she was, how and why she had come to Athabasca Landing, her interest in Sandy Matriga, the mysterious relationship that must surely exist between her and Inspector Kedsty. Chiefly, her real motive in coming to him when she knew that he was dying. He comforted himself by the assurance that he would have learned these things had she not left him so suddenly. He had not expected that. The question which seated itself most insistently in his mind was, why had she come? Was it, after all, merely a matter of curiosity? Was her relationship to Sandy Matriga such that inquisitiveness alone had brought her to see the man who had saved him? Surely she had not been urged by a sense of gratitude, for in no way had she given expression to that. On Nasser's deathbed, she had almost made fun of him, as she could not have come as a messenger from Matriga, or she would have left her message. For the first time he began to doubt that she knew the man at all, in spite of the strange thing that had happened under O'Connor's eyes. But she must know Kedsty. She had made no answer to his half-accusation that she was hiding up at the inspector's bungalow. He had used that word. Once again, the valley grew still. The wind moves gently through the trees. The river continues its quiet path through the darkness, and what has unfolded tonight settles softly into silence. If you are still awake, notice how much slower everything feels now. The tension has deepened. The wilderness has revealed just a little more, but not everything, because something is changing. Beneath quiet surface of the Three Rivers country, currents are moving, choices are forming, footsteps are drawing closer, and what seemed distant may soon stand face to face, but not tonight. Tonight, the valley rests again. If your eyes are heavy, let them stay closed. If your thoughts are drifting, let them drift farther. There is no need to hold on to every detail. The story will be here when you return, and in part 3, the silence will begin to shift. What has been patient may no longer wait. What has been hidden may step into the open. The valley keeps its secrets carefully, but it does not keep them forever. So when you are ready to continue, when the night feels quiet again, part 3 will be waiting. Until then, breathe slowly. Let your body sink deeper into rest. Let the wilderness fade gently into dreams. Sleep peacefully, and I will meet you again in the valley.